Good afternoon. Had a good lunch in your hostels? Lunch was very good. Okay, happy to hear that. I've seen all of you yesterday, right? Have you seen me yesterday? No? Yesterday you forgot already so many lectures. You did see me. I did address you yesterday. No, day before yesterday. I'm so sorry. Day before yesterday, right? All right. So, I'm not here to give you a long lecture. I'm going to give you a quiz. Yeah? Are you ready for a quiz? ऑलरेडी अरे लेक्चर्स भी शुरू नहीं हुए क्विज ले रहे हैं सर नहीं ऐसी बात नहीं है as you will go ahead you will see that there will be surprise quizzes as well. Now an anecdote from I was sitting like you a couple of few decades ago and we had a very brilliant mathematics professor who is now superannuated, Professor K.D. Joshi. Some of you may have heard his name. And he used to teach, he was a brilliant teacher. He taught us complex analysis in mathematics. So he came to the classroom one day and he said, today is a surprise quiz. We all complained, no surprise quiz. So he asks a question, do you want a surprise quiz or do you want a surprise in the quiz? Knowing him as a very difficult exam setter and evaluator, that was hardly a choice amongst the two. But anyway, I will take a simpler quiz. Last year from IIT Bombay, there was a launch of a very successful cancer treatment therapy that the Honorable President came and launched. How many of you are aware of that? Okay, just 3 of you. नहीं, A grade तो नहीं मिलेगा इसके लिए. But can you tell me the name of the therapy? Okay, it's called CAR T cell therapy for certain specific types of blood cancer, indigenously developed at IIT Bombay in the Biosciences and Bioengineering Lab. We have Professor Nivedita also here. So you have nothing to do with that, but from the biosciences. It's a game changer because a decade ago or so, there were various research groups from all across the world working on that problem of what we call as cell and gene therapy. At IIT Bombay also, one of our colleagues, Professor Rahul Purwar, whom you'll get to hear more from, he also was working on that and he did some innovations. He did some leapfrogging and his technology therapy treatment was available about 2 years back. We had to go through the regulatory approvals and finally it was launched by the Honorable President from our campus. It has already treated about 200 patients for those specific types of blood cancer, one of them being an 8-year-old child, successfully cured, no sign of recurrence so far, touch wood. That's the beauty of an indigenous development of a cell and gene therapy treatment from the campus. But what's more important for you to understand is the cost at which that therapy is being done. The cost is less than a tenth of what it costs elsewhere in the world. Elsewhere, it costs an equivalent of 4 crore Indian rupees per patient. In India, administered through his startup and now growing, it costs about 26 to 30 lakhs per patient. Now, there's a fabulous thing that happened from IIT Bombay. Okay, that's just one example because it's recent, very current. Several such examples of high quality research being matured. Research has to be matured from a proof of concept to a proof of product to a reliable proof of product to a highly reliable integrity product. A proof of product is what you need and research is involved in all of these phases. We have, for example, IdeaForge. How many of you have heard of a company called IdeaForge? A drones company. Already started from IIT Bombay, went IPO. So we call that IP to IPO, intellectual property to the IPO. and they have been very successful in defense, agriculture, and so many application areas, right? So tremendous opportunities for you bright minds as you step into your individual disciplines. There is huge opportunities for you to leverage what you study here at IIT Bombay. Keep your minds open, keep your ears open to make sure that you see opportunities. Now, let me ask you this question. What do you mean by research? When you say research, what does it mean? Probably can be interpreted as research. What does that mean? Somebody has already searched it and you are researching it. Is that what it means? What does it mean? Research. What is your thought? What do you feel research is about, all about? Right? So discovering, it's uncovering something that's there, and you want to understand more. The spirit of inquiry, the ability to look at a phenomena that's occurring around you, look at an object around you, try to understand it more, try to understand various happenings around you, driven by spirit of inquiry and taking it to improve your scientific understanding of what's happening around you. How many of you understand the threat to the planet? There is a threat to the planet. Do we understand it completely? No. We do understand some aspects of it. Research is continuing, right? How do we generate clean energy? Do we understand that? Well, somewhat. Still, we need to do a lot more. Okay? So, you have one aspect of the activity that you do in research, which is driven from a spirit of inquiry, giving you the joy of discovery, and saying, well, I have now a better fundamental understanding of some phenomena. The other aspect is there is a problem at hand, and working backwards, you want to hypothesize on how do you solve that problem, and you want to leverage whatever understanding you have, science, technology, engineering, whatever understanding you have, you want to leverage that understanding and see how you best you will be able to solve that problem. And chances are that you will fall short. So you do need to revisit your fundamentals. You do need to go and try to understand more about, let's say, materials discovery, about biosciences, about energy materials. Now, so many of these you want to go back and revisit them from the perspective of solving the problem. So, one aspect is spirit of inquiry, the other is a problem driven research that basically comes down even to understanding the fundamentals. Now, there is this thing that Indians are very popularly known for, which is jugaad. Must all have heard about that. And that's a band-aid solution. That's a quick fix solution to a problem. Okay? Not that we should discourage that. Certainly, we should look at jugaad as a quick fix. But for something that enhances the quality of the solution and the sustainability of the solution, a thorough fundamental understanding of where the solution is derived from is equally important. Okay, so you do need to have a strong fundamental basis even to get a reasonably good quality jugaad. Okay, but to improve that and make it further. So, this session is primarily to orient you and sensitize you to the fact that at IIT Bombay, it's not just classroom teaching. Of course, there will be classroom teaching. Certainly, you will be exposed to various aspects of your individual discipline. But there is a lot that's happening outside of the classroom as well. There's a lot that you can leverage multidisciplinary problems. No problem comes with a tag. It's basically a problem that involves inputs from various disciplines that need to be brought together to be able to solve a problem, right? So that's something that you have a tremendous opportunity to get exposed to. Keep your ears open, eyes open. Make sure that you leverage those, right? So discover is the first step, driven by your passion to understand more. Develop. So the 4Ds is what I'm talking about. Discover, develop, demonstrate, and deploy. right? These are the 4 steps of how you would take engineering or fundamental understanding to create solutions for societal impact, right? As I said, proof of product has to come up from proof of concept. Proof of concept is something that you first, you are thrilled, let's say you have your own Archimedes movement, no, not without clothes, but the Archimedes movement of discovery, that's the proof of concept. But you want to make sure that you build a ship leveraging that concept, right? Archimedes principle. So, you want to take that maturation step of your basic proof of concept, mature that research to higher what they call as TRLs, technology readiness level. A proof of concept is at TRL 3, need to take it to TRL 8 or 9 to be able to, be able to incubate and commercialize that, right? So, you have to think through these steps. There are tremendous opportunities here. So, as I said, the 4 Ds: discover, develop, demonstrate, and deploy, right? So, that's typically what are broadly I would say, if you want to make your research create impact, you have to go through these 4 steps. Now, I want to say that at IIT Bombay, we have a very nice ecosystem. We have this Industrial Research and Consultancy Consortium Center, which basically is the heart of all research happening at IIT Bombay. Okay, it all sponsored research, consulting related research, all of that is driven from this IRCC, the Industrial Research and Consultancy Center. Okay, we have this as the custodian of all IP, intellectual property, that is generated at IIT Bombay, and trust me, there is a lot that's happening on campus. Okay, 14,000 students, 750 plus faculty. There is a lot happening. So, all the intellectual property that gets generated is the custody of the Dean Research and Development. Okay. Then we have something called as a Translational Research Center. What's a Translational Research Center? We call it as TRYST, TRYST. A Translational Research Center takes it from a proof of concept, which is, let's say, an output from a BTech project, an MTech project, or a PhD thesis. It's at a TRL level of 3 or 4. It needs to be matured to a proof of product stage. So, as it matures through the TRL level. So, what is TRL? Technology readiness level. The TRL goes to higher and higher values, TRL 7. So, taking it from TRL 3, 4 to TRL 7 happens in the Translational Research Center, where engineering support is provided. Okay. Beyond that, it needs to be incubated. You need to really test that well in a very robust environment. That happens in an incubator that's also present on campus. It's a technology business incubator called SIGN, Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Okay. And we also have a research park on campus where our industry corporates co-locate their research and development labs, their design centers, and they collaborate with IIT Bombay. So, with this kind of an ecosystem, we are already seeing evidences of IIT Bombay research getting matured. I gave you 2 examples, CAR-T cell therapy and IdeaForge. Several others that get matured, go to the research park and further the state of the art in science and technology, right. So, this is where I want to leave you with this message that you have entered the portals of a very vibrant ecosystem in research and development. Yes, excellence in teaching, learning is something that we go after to build a strong foundation for you. But as the foundation is getting built, make sure that you keep your ears and eyes open, keep your antennas up there to receive as much information that you can imbibe, to develop the research mindset. Nothing happens by serendipity, right? What is serendipity? Serendipity, anybody? Yeah, so give me an example. Benzene rings were discovered by, and what was that due to? He had a dream. He had a dream. So that's serendipity. But it's serendipity also happens because of a significant thought that has gone in. So when he sleeps, the subconscious mind thought about it and he said, okay, can benzene rings be found by forming a cyclic configuration, right? So serendipity does contribute to research, but there is a systematic approach to research that all of you can get exposed to, research methodologies, to be able to build good solutions for the society, for the nation, for the world, and to make your own lives more comfortable while using your top story, right? You want to get that satisfaction of using your top story, right? Intellectual, you want to be stimulated well, correct? So get on to this task, right? And I'm sure all of you will have a great time doing research while also doing learning and teaching, okay? We have a galaxy of several of my faculty colleagues who will expose you to so many different aspects of research in their own individual disciplines. Stay awake. Chai chahiye kisi ko? How many of you are awake? Ah, good, good, good. So stay awake, ask questions, because without asking questions, you will go to sleep, right? So ask questions. Even if it's fundamental, don't be afraid to ask. Ask questions, understand more, leverage your understanding, and build competencies in all of these areas. Okay? All the very best.
Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations. I'm the odd one out in this auditorium. I belong to a department, I think I'm the only one who belongs to the Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering. Two, I'm not a BTech. I don't have a BTech degree. So I have an MBBS degree. So after my medicine, I'm a student here. So I joined MTech in Biomedical Engineering here at IIT Bombay and started my journey towards neural engineering, what I do today. So biomedical engineering is something, it's an old term. I think most of you are familiar with. We don't even have a program, undergrad program in biomedical engineering in IIT Bombay. But how many of you have heard of neural engineering? Yes, what do you think is neural engineering? Okay, development of neuron and brain related things. Neural, brain related engineering. So essentially engineering the brain. Yeah. So what do you think it entails? Something cool you've heard of? Elon Musk? Yes, right? So, but that is not really very recent. That is at least more than about 20-year-old research that because Elon Musk does seems to have something that everybody knows, but academicians have been doing that for several decades now, right? So I don't do anything of that. I don't work on rats or mice. I work in humans, and I study something that is very common to all of us and everybody can relate to, which is the brain, how essentially your brain works. Now tell me, what is the difference between this plant as an organism, the dog that walked in, and each one of us? Yes? Our brain, the dog has a brain. We are not going to consciousness, okay. We don't know if dog has consciousness or not yet, right? Yes. What do you mean more advanced? Someone here? So essentially, I study movement, right? How many of you think it's the movement that actually makes the brain more complex? Movement is something very simple, right? Is it? Okay. Now you will change your mind after 10 minutes of my talk. Anybody else? Why do you think I should study movement, which doesn't seem very complex, right? Even before almost any of you were born, the computer DeepMind defeated Gary Kasparov, right? But do we know of a prosthetic that can actually work as precisely as the human hand, like the hand of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old? Does it have the dexterity essentially picking up? No, we don't. We still don't, right? So movement chauvinists or movement neuroscientists, one of whom I am, believe that the more complex and adaptable behaviors that an organism wants to do, the more complex that organism's brain is, right? So that's exactly why I study the movement and my lab studies the movement, but I'll tell you in what context. So we use neural engineering. Essentially, I'm not an engineer. I don't like to call myself an engineer because I don't develop tools, but I use tools developed by engineers to understand how my brain works, how our brain works, and how you can interact with your brain and how you can change your brain, right? Ultimately, what the humankind wants is to change brain activity, change somebody's brain's function for the good or for the bad. I, Robot, right? So, so essentially, that's what you want. You want to change somebody's brain. But how will you bring about a change in the brain? First, you should know how to interact with the brain. You should know the language of the brain, right? So your brain is giving you signals. You need to know how to interpret it, what your brain says, what the brain says. And again, you would want to use it to also give some commands and change the wiring in the brain. So how you want the brain to function. So essentially, you want this loop to become completed. And this brings, so how do you do it? You can use a lot of methods to visualize the brain as it functions, as it does a certain function. And if there is a problem with the function, you want to change the brain. As of now, I'm looking at patients in whom the brain is not functioning well. So you can actually plug in a couple of electrodes and keep zapping the brain tissue until it functions well. Or what is the more cooler thing that people usually are familiar with is a brain-computer interface, the BCI, right? So here, what you're doing, you see there's a boy who's wearing this cap kind of a thing. So it's basically sensors on the scalp, which gathers brain signals. And the computer tries to identify or gather some information about what exactly the brain tries to say, and then uses that information to encode a device that you want to do something that it has to do, right? So that's what the prosthetic hand is doing. So essentially, this interaction with the brain and modulation of the brain function is what we are aiming for, and that can never be achieved optimally unless you understand the brain, right? So so that's where we start off with. So this is, again, as I said, we study the human motor control, and as you realize, this is extremely complex unless you realize when somebody loses control of movement. Right? So we have, you probably have seen elderly people in your family, in your friend's family, or around you who have tremors in old age. It's not just because of senility, but also maybe young people who have tremors. Parkinson's disease is something that people have heard about. So essentially, there are a lot of other disorders where there is loss of control of movement. And is essentially, many of these are because the wiring, the network inside the brain, the software is corrupted. And we're trying to identify and debug this code which has got corrupted and try to regain function. So that's the whole idea of what we do. So we study the brain, we gather signals from the brain when somebody is doing a particular task. It could be memory, attention, a movement control task. And we try to identify which part of the brain does that, which parts of the brain. So it's essentially not one or two, it's an entire network of regions in the brain that work in coherence that result in a successful function or a behavior. So we study what signal in the brain links to what behavior, and if a particular behavior is disrupted, what is wrong with the signal? And that is what happens in patients, right? And if we can zap the brain with electricity to restore this network, again, set the network right, debug the code, and get the function optimal, back to its normal. So this is exactly what we try to do. We see the brain as not just regions of chunks of tissue that just living tissue, but as a network of oscillators that oscillate at different frequencies, and they're linked, talking to each other in different the signal patterns. Okay, so one is, as you can see, the brain is completely a messed up network here. And we're trying to understand what is the mess that has happened in the brain of a particular patient. And that is using many of the neuroimaging techniques. And then we try to apply external means by which you can basically get back the network into normal function. So this is, and non-invasively. Not everybody can undergo a surgery where you can plug in electrodes, but can we do it non-invasively? in walking, talking humans. And that's what my lab does. So this is, as you can see, we do a lot of signal processing. We do quite a bit of, at least use engineering tools. So a lot of signal processing, we do machine learning, we do a lot of neural modeling. And in addition to psychology, neuroscience, and so this is a very interdisciplinary group. So we do work with patients, we study patients as well. So essentially a very interdisciplinary group, interdisciplinary research. We collaborate with civil engineers. Can you guess why we collaborate with civil engineers? Is there anything at all to do with the brain and the civil engineer, if any of them are? So we study with So we study brain behavior. So essentially, we study behavior of drivers, right? So what's happening to the driving behavior on the road? So we collaborate with civil engineers to do that. We collaborate with ISRO, especially for the human space flight program, to see how cognition is affected in high altitude conditions, essentially in microgravity and things like that. So there's a lot to do in this field. So if you're interested to work in neuroscience, then drop by. The lab is at room 503 BSB. Just have a chat with any of us, and you can take up a small project or volunteer as a participant. If you're 18 years or older, we do a lot of studies. You don't have to zap your brain, but at least we'll try to get your signals out and see how your brain works. And I do offer a course in the spring, Introduction to Neural Engineering, in case anybody is interested. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you, and many, many congratulations for getting into IIT. So I will start with a question. Now, you all have taken admission into IIT Bombay into a certain department, right? Some of you in computer science, electrical, civil, or whatever department. How many of you took admission into that department because you knew that is what you wanted to do? Okay, a very good number. Fantastic. So you have things figured out for yourself. You can keep that in mind, and as you go ahead, pursue your dreams. But those who have not figured out what they want to do and have taken a department, I would say that's perfectly okay. And that's the story I want to share with you today. That's my story, and it will resonate with you. So those who have figured out, yes, perfect. But also keep your mind open, because when you go ahead, maybe after your third year, you find something else super interesting. Would you pursue it or not? Yes. And those who haven't figured out, this is the time for exploration. Now you can figure out what you want. And I'm pretty sure that IITB has the opportunities that you will be able to figure out by the end of your third or fourth year what you want to do. Okay, so I joined IIT Bombay in 2007 as a BTech in electrical engineering. And it was really a choice that I made by elimination. So I wanted to do before that maybe astronomy or physics, or maybe I had some thoughts about biology, but not really. But then IIT doesn't teach astronomy, or at least didn't at that time. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So I took electrical engineering. And then eventually I figured out that that's not really where my main interest lies. Yes, I was learning a bit of physics in electrical engineering, but not as much as I would have liked to. I mean, my same year, IIT had introduced a minors program. So maybe that's still there. So you can also think of the minors program to pursue your interests. And then I took a minors in physics. And when I was doing the first course in physics, I thought, that math is too much for me. So this is after coming from JEE, right? But anyway, so then in the meanwhile, I was also getting interested into ecology, because climate change was coming into the picture. How many of you think climate change is happening? Okay, fantastic. Everyone, there's no doubt. In India, I think everybody agrees with climate change. That's a good thing to do. But anyway, so the question is, okay, climate change is happening, temperatures are increasing, sea levels are rising, everything is happening. What do we do about it? Professor Goody said that we have to think about solutions, right? So that was what was kind of driving me at that point. And then I took up a minors in environmental science. Then I wrote to some scientists from IISc Bangalore and various other places. I wanted to study more about the climate, more about our planet, more about sustainability, and so on. And then as I went along, I started getting those opportunities. In IIT, like I said, I did the minors. I did a bunch of courses on environmental science in ecology. There were some ecology courses at that time already. And then I approached Professor Sukumar from Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore to seek an opportunity for a research project, and he readily agreed. And then I did a short stint in his lab. I did a research project, and then I did my PhD in IISc. But what do you know? Did I do my PhD in ecology or environmental science? No, I did it in animal behavior. Why? Because I liked it. Simple. Anyway, so after 5 years of doing animal behavior, I was like, nah, not really for me. I want to do something else. Okay, but then, anyway, so then I went for a postdoc. And I did my postdoc finally, again, back in sustainability and climate change and plants and so on. And that is when I could really say that, okay, I found the love of my life in terms of what my research area should be, right? So, that's how long it could take you, but the journey is super satisfying. It can be frustrating at first. You might feel a lot of existential crisis. You might think, okay, what am I doing in life, right? But it's super rewarding in the end. And I'll tell you what, so this was the sort of personal story. Okay, I finally was able to figure out what I wanted to do. That's not the end of it. The point is, I had by this time skills in electrical engineering, so I had all the quantitative math background and so on. Then I had skills in theory of evolution, natural selection, a lot of the math that goes behind the theory of evolution. When I studied animal behavior, I was doing a lot of evolutionary dynamics. So I had those skills. And then when I went for a PhD in climate change and plants, I had a lot of idea about global forests, global biomes, functioning of ecosystems, and so on. So now when I started, I never knew that these were going to be disciplines that somewhere came together. But then as you start seeing those connections, you will see that a lot of things get sort of applied in other disciplines. There is a lot of cross-fertilization. So I was then applying evolutionary theory into plants. I was applying all the electrical engineering math into modeling ecosystems. And what I'm doing now is that there is a group that I have just set up. I joined in January, so just a few months ahead of you. I've set up a group called Treehouse. So that's my research lab. You can Google Treehouse IITB and you will find me. And what we do is we take a lot of interdisciplinary approach. We apply all kinds of tools and techniques from physics, maths, engineering, ecology, evolution, animal behavior, you name it, into studying plants and ecosystems. So that's our current focus. And we are trying to understand, okay, now that climate change is happening, temperatures are rising, carbon dioxide is rising. So how is that going to affect plants? So if you looked at recent reports, there have been massive wildfires in California, even in places in India, right? How many of you heard of the Californian wildfires? Yeah, all of you heard it because it was so prominent, right? Super high damage. Then there are so many floods occurring, lots of floods also in India, right? So likewise, there are also forest diebacks, which means that there is a heat wave or there is a drought event or something like that, and en masse, a large chunk of forest just gets wiped out. So then how do we prevent these things from happening? Plants are sequestering so much carbon dioxide, right? So they are like critical for our sustainability. So how do we know how plants are going to respond to future climate change? So that's our area of study. And I'll just give you a little sample of how we do things. So we kind of try to put ourselves in the shoes of a plant. So, you have plants, there's a plant has a leaf. The leaf takes in carbon dioxide. And in the process, it leaves what? Oxygen, also water. Water is lost when carbon dioxide is taken in. Now, why does that happen? Because on the leaves, there are these little gates, like holes, which are sort of guarded by cells. They are called stomata. Well, all of you know, fantastic. So what happens is, when carbon dioxide goes in from the stomata, water goes out. And now the plant has to make a decision. Carbon in is good. Yeah, it's food. Plant can make tissues out of it. But water loss is bad, because when water is lost, the plant, what happens, like you have let's say a sponge with a fluid in it, and then you suck it with a straw. If there is no sponge, there's just water, you will get water, right? But if you're sucking through a sponge, if you suck really hard, what will happen? Air will get into your mouth, right? That's exactly what happens in a plant. If there is a very high, let's say very low humidity, very high, very dry conditions, then there's a lot of suction on the water in the plants. And then the plants tend to lose more water. And that is risky because then air bubbles get into the plant and the plant dies. So the plant has to balance this, right? There's a trade-off. Do I get in more carbon at the cost of more water, or do I shut down that stomata, lose out on carbon, and then starve to death, right? So this trade-off is really the most fundamental trade-off among the plant world. It controls all of photosynthesis across the globe, and that is what helps us explain what happens when there is a drought, what happens when there is a heat wave, right? So that is something we study. So if you're interested in any of these ideas, look me up, Treehouse IIT Bombay, and I'm very welcome to taking interns, projects, BTech projects, MTech projects, whatever you like. I also want to mention before I finish that there is also a internship opportunity in our climate studies department. This is separate from the SERP that was mentioned before. It's called SPURS, Summer Program for Undergraduate Research in Sustainability. So if you guys are interested, you can join that internship program I think after your second or third year. And then from that, there is also an entrepreneurship program that our department offers. It's called Access. So if you have ideas about climate-related entrepreneurship or have interests in pursuing climate-related entrepreneurship, then you can go through SPURS and then you can get selected into Access. If you get through in Access, you get some funding, seed funding to start your own company and so on. So all of those opportunities, climate studies is a very, very interdisciplinary department. We have people from policy, we have people from atmospheric science, I'm from ecology, we have people from, let's say, oceanography, hydrology, soil hydrology. So it's a very, very diverse set of people. If you want to do some projects in there, you will get a lot of value from it. So thank you very much.
So I do not have any slides to show. I know that you have been running around from orientation sessions to orientation session, right? Are you tired? Yeah. You want the classes to start so badly? No? Okay. How many of you are civil engineers? Okay. So I'll be coming to your class on 28th. Okay, good. So far you would have realized that IIT is not just for teaching, right? So in your +2, in your 12th standard, you have been, or in your coaching center, you have been studying about some subjects and some exams, again another subject, exams, and that kind of a life, right? You would have realized that IIT is not just, I would say that it's not just a teaching institute, right? Something called research is happening here. At least all of you would have understood that, right? You might not have understood what the kind of topics that were discussed here, but something called research is happening, right? Now let's understand a bit about what is research. What is your quick feedback? What do you think? Can I ask you? Yeah. Right. So very good answer. Already there is something already there and you want to know more about it, right? So I'll give, good, very good answer. So I'll give a little bit of correlation for you. So you guys have born sometime around 2007-8, right? Okay. So that's the time. So when I was doing my undergrad, there was no mobile phones. Okay, mobile phones were there. Even when I was growing up, there was no mobile phones. Okay, there were land phones. Right, you might have at least read about that period. Right, you might have seen in movies. Right. Then what happened? Then something called mobile phones have come. Right, which is having buttons. Have you seen? Any of you have seen mobile phones with buttons? Right, you have seen that. Now, and around the period that you were born, around 2007 to 2009, probably that would be the period, right? A big invention has happened in mobile phones. What was that? Touch screen, okay. How many of you has an iPhone here? Okay, how many of you have an Android? Okay, so we know who is the winner, right? Okay, so the iPhones have come around 2007, Androids have come around 2008, right? Then the era of smartphone has started, right? Now, if I may ask you, what would have happened, right? Earlier in 90s or 80s, There were no land phones. 90s land phones have come, become into practice. Then mobile phones have come, iPhones have come, Androids have come, smartphones have come. What will come next? We don't know. So that researchers will tell, right? So there is, if you look at whatever you name, whichever field you name, there is this trajectory is there, right? If you look at TV, right? Earlier there were big TVs, which is having picture tubes and so on. Then the smart TVs have come, LED TVs, LCD TVs, right? Maybe after 30 years, maybe we might not be liking TVs. We don't know, right? People are working on technologies, right? So that way, if you try to correlate, in every sector, research is happening, right? You are understanding what I'm talking about, right? Now, most of your civil engineers, which I think economics people are there, right? Economic students, environmental science are there, right? In economics, if you look at, there is basically policy-based research is happening, right? Or more new theorems and so on, right? In environment, if you look at maybe new data collection metrics or these kind of things are happening, right? So if you look at, and most of your civil engineers, I know if you look at the profiles of each of the faculty here in civil engineer, you can now understand every person is working in some different domains, right? For instance, I am working on something called construction management, right? Construction management. So I'm working on some niche areas. There are people working on materials, right? For instance, the people who are working in materials, construction materials, there were some inventions like self-healing concrete. What would be that? Just by the word, you have just passed the JE and came here. Self-healing concrete, what would be that? If there are some cracks, it heals in itself, right? We don't have to go there and put some cement paste and do it, right? So that's an invention, right? There is pervious concrete, right? Which means water can go through it to the soil, which is good, right? Okay. There is ultra high performance concrete, right? Recently there was a news, one of our faculty colleagues has developed something called an ultra high performance concrete, which can help people from missile attack. I mean, with a missile attack also, that bunker or whatever that house is, it will not get collapsed. That kind of a concrete. So earlier, if you look at maybe 20 years before, this was not there. So people are doing research in these kind of domains. So I will just name a few. Do you have any idea about any other research that is happening in civil engineering in particular? Any new revelation that is happening in civil engineering? What? Okay, that's a domain. Have you heard about 3D printing? 3D printed structures? When I was doing my civil engineering, 3D printing was not there, or research was happening about it, right? Have you heard about something called ChatGPT? Everybody would have heard. That's a life savior for many of you, right? Now, when I was doing my PhD, research was happening about ChatGPT or large language models, right? So, I'll name a few. Self-healing concrete I talked about, bendable concrete, flexible concrete, right? Then something called building information modeling, right? Digitally you see the building, you model the building, right? If you have a real building, you model the building and see it. That's the building information modeling. And something called seismic resilient design. Earthquakes is a big problem, right? So when you construct a building, nowadays when you construct a building, you have to make it seismic resilient, which means if an earthquake, large earthquake of a particular magnitude comes, the building will not collapse. That will save what? Lives, right? So the research that people are doing, civil engineers are doing, has an impact on life, right? Ground improvement techniques, meaning the soil, how to improve the quality of the soil, right? If the soil is bad, how to construct? And if I want to construct something there, how will I achieve that? You want to improve the soil, right? So there is research happening there. structural health monitoring. You might be seeing in news and all, there are some bridge collapses that are happening, right? Maybe you might be coming from such regions where recently there was a bridge collapse was there. So, which means that there is a need to monitor the buildings or the structure, whether it will collapse or not, right? You need to understand the health of structure. That's similar to how you go to a doctor and assess your health. You have a pressure or sugar issue or diabetes or these kind of things, right? So these are some of the areas. I just try to list a very few. There are many such areas are happening, right? So this is now I'm moving on to the next part of what I want to cover is how you can get involved in it, right? Are you interested to involve in these kind of things, right? Then I can say that you are interested to do research, right? So the first and foremost thing is, see, you are doing now first year. Now start developing an interest in one of these areas or any of these areas that you come across. That's the first step. It's not like somebody else will develop an interest in you, right? When you're taking some courses, start developing some interest, and there are a lot of opportunities. So if you develop an interest, if you want to work on, let's say if you want to work on 3D printing, right? There are faculty who is working on 3D printing here in the campus, right? With your interest, with your understanding of it, you can approach them. That is one way, right? If there is some project and if the faculty feels that you can do it, you are showing enough passion towards doing it, he or she might take you into a project and you will get tagged to some of the students or researchers who are already working on it. That's how you gain experience, right? One other option is there is something called a BTech project that you can do. I think you can see when you can do it. It's a semester long project, right? That also you can tie in with some of the faculty, right? Then there are internship opportunities you can look at, right? But most importantly, the essence is that you should develop an interest on it, right? Any area should develop it. But you might be thinking that this is not it. I will do my courses and I'll be the topper, gold medalist, and I'll go like that. But right now, the industry, what they are looking for is not just your grades. Understand that, right? If you just sit in your room and just study and finish your BTech, you are not going to get a great job, right? So if you have some sort of a research experience in your CV, it's going to help you immensely, right? So all this is connected. Your career, your future career path, and all those things are connected, right? So so that was the purpose of my speech. I just wanted to give an introduction of what the research is. I hope you got some of the introduction towards an area, and we'll have several interactions. Anyway, for civil engineering students, I'm dealing one course for the entire semester. So we'll interact more there. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anish. I'm from the Department of Energy Science and Engineering. Can I just ask you to raise your left hand? Do it like that. More. Yes. Good. Thank you. So you just attempted a quiz, right? Or something, crossword. So is there anyone who does not have a phone? We're talking about phones a lot today, so let's continue with that. Is there anyone who does not have a phone? All of you have a phone. Did you eat lunch? Anyone who skipped it? Anyone who skipped lunch? How many of you took a bath in the morning? Excellent. So we'll see you at convocation when we say. So the priority is phone, food, bath. By the time you are in fourth year, bath. Okay. Weird questions. There is a reason why I'm asking. Do you know where has your phone come from? What are the steps? involved in getting your phone to you. What is it made of? Go ahead. So start from resource extraction to processing the resources, manufacturing the phone, transporting it to the retailers, use by you, and finally disposing it off or recycling it for some components. The one thing that is binding all the steps is the energy that is required in different forms. You may need electricity, you may need fuels, solid fuels like coal for producing electricity and heat, liquid fuels like petrol, diesel for the trucks, gaseous fuel if the truck runs with CNG, right? And finally, when you are using it, you are charging it, just like these two guys who are doing it right now. See, hello, now, okay, probably put it inside. Anyway, so I see there are many people who are charging their phones and laptops. I understand you have been playing games for last 1.5 hours. It's okay. Gets discharged. You have to charge it. So that's the use phase of the phone. Not a single step where you do not require some or other form of energy. So priorities: phone, food. The same happens with the food cycle. You require electricity, fuels, cooling energy, heating energy. You are sitting in a room, you are comfortable because the temperature is maintained at a certain number. Everything that you do, every meal that you have had, every piece of cloth that you have worn ever needed some form of energy to reach you and requires some form of energy to dispose it everywhere for all the steps. And this is what we try to do in our department. We work on research from a small molecular level to a large scale national or global level of energy systems, covering all dimensions from physics, chemistry, material science, environmental science, sustainability, and whatever you can think of. So what I just wanted to highlight here is when we talk about the research that is happening, we start with the fundamental studies. This is a pouch cell developed by a faculty member in our department, much safer than the cells that are available. These kinds of batteries are used in your phones and other electronic devices. Then we go into other forms of storage as well, not just a small scale, 5 kilograms, 10 kilograms, but 50, 100 industrial scale storage of hydrogen. We just don't store it, we also test it on vehicles using a fuel cell. All these are ongoing projects with faculty members in our department. We also convert some kinds of waste into oil, then test that oil in the engines that we have installed in our facilities. And finally, while we work on all this, we also make sure that all these things come together and work in a coherent, cohesive manner while taking care of the economic aspects, sustainability aspects, and the policy and regulatory aspects. So this is the Department of Energy Science and Engineering, from fundamental level to large scale system level research that takes place in all dimensions of energy in order to ensure that we try to develop solutions which emit less without compromising on the quality of life. While you look at the pictures of the facilities that we have, I invite you to have a look at the electives that we offer. It's a wide variety of electives depending on which area you come from, or based on your interest as well. You may also explore the minor program in energy if you want to have this kind of an exposure. And that's it. This is about the department. This is the research that we do. Everything that you do has some energy component in it, you're welcome to explore it, you're welcome to work on it, and you're welcome to implement it in the solutions that you may possibly develop while you are a student life, during your student life here. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to keep it short.
Anyone who can tell me what are you looking at? This beautiful chandelier. Quantum? Quantum is hardly a noun. So, anyway, not that I really expect you to know, but first of all, welcome to IIT Bombay. It's nice to have you all here. And what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes is make sure that you know everything about quantum computers. Okay, that's not going to happen. But hopefully, in the 10 minutes, I can enthuse you about this topic, which has created a lot of buzz across the world. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. Raise your hands. That's nice to see. And you will be very, very happy to know that we are doing a lot here in IIT Bombay for the country, because the country wants the quantum capability to be established very soon. And you can be part of this exciting journey. Okay. So let me just explain in very brief what quantum computing is all about. Okay. And that's not an easy thing to understand. So I will take very little steps and start from things that we know. You know, something I'm calling classical computers, or the computers that you use at home and in your offices or in your classes and so on. And we will take a deeper dive and see what really happens and how this works, right? So if you look into the, okay, so if you look into today's computers, at the core of the CPU, what you will see is this so-called microprocessors, right? Which is shown right here, up here. And these are little silicon chips. And if you had a very powerful microscope, then you will see that, as I'm, just a second, this is not working. Okay, sorry for that. So if you had a powerful microscope, you can actually see that these chips consist of these tiny elements called transistors, which I've shown there. And in today's chip, you will find something like 700,000 million transistors that I've shown here, okay? And even more powerful microscope will show you how this individual transistor looks. I'm not expecting you to know how it looks, nothing special, but it's very important to understand how this transistor actually works, okay? Now here's the example. A transistor is essentially a device which works like a switch that you use at home. You know, at home, you manually control the switch. You can switch it on or switch it off. But here, what happens is that we have a region which we call the source and a region which we call the drain, which can exchange electrons between them, but not until I have applied some voltage to the third terminal, which I'm calling the gate, okay? And once I have the gate, essentially some voltage applied to the gate, then a channel is established between the source and drain, and then my transistor is on. Bottom line is, when I have a transistor, it behaves like a switch which is not manually controlled but voltage controlled. Nevertheless, it's a switch. But in the language of information processing, which is actually, sorry for this, I'll basically have to go to my computer. That's one reason why it's not working. Okay, now it's much better. So this is why I was really struggling to explain things. Okay, so I just explained you how a transistor works, but more importantly, because the transistor works like a switch, we can think of this as a so-called two-level system. What do I mean by this? A system which can exist in two levels or two states. Like a switch can be on or off, high or low. These are the two states, right? And this is what allows you to encode information, or the very basic unit of information, which is a binary digit or a bit. So to the state low, I can say this is 0. To the state high, I can say this is 1, right? And this is where you start classical computation. You first make a bit, and then you keep adding bits, create bytes, And the larger the number of bits, you can process larger and larger numbers, right? This is how the whole game works. But the question that we really want to ask here, and which is the most important question, is the transistor really the example or the only example of a two-level system? Because as you can understand, for binary computation, you need a two-level system. And the simple answer to this question is actually no. Nature provides a lot of candidates which can behave as a two-level system, and they are much more powerful. And let me show you through one example, which I'm hoping that you will be able to connect to. And this is called the spin of an electron. How many of you are aware of spin? Okay, what is spin? Right, I was expecting something like rotate, but let me tell you that it's far from rotate. Okay, the reason is it's a purely quantum mechanical property which is very difficult to explain in words that we use every day. But the closest you can do is think of a rotating or a spinning top. So that spin is like an angular momentum which can be up or down, and accordingly we have something called the spin up and a spin down electron. Okay, but they have the same energy, something which we understand is called degeneracy. Okay, so the two spin states are degenerate in the absence of a magnetic field. But if I apply a magnetic field, the two energy states split in energy, and see what you have done, you have created a two-level system, right? So the question is, can this do the job for me? Can this do the computing job for me? If I'm smart enough, I can actually get more out of it, and this is what I will try to convince you. So let's say this is my two-level system, but the specialty of this two-level system is this is a quantum two-level system. And what I'm going to say next is the most important takeaway statement. If you forget everything else, just remember this. This two-level system is a quantum two-level system, which means that it not only exists in the states 0 and 1, which we call the basis states, it can also exist in a linear superposition of 0 and 1, which is mathematically this, but more importantly, and this is the statement, it is simultaneously in the state 0 and 1 with some probabilities. And the probabilities are given by the modular squared of those numbers, but it's simultaneously there, it's not partially there. It's simultaneously 0 and 1 at the same time. That's what quantum mechanics allows. And you can understand that an infinite space just opened up. You can have linear superpositions with alpha 1 and alpha naught being anything. The only constraint is the modular squared have to add up to 1. But as long as they do, there are infinite possibilities, right? So you just unveiled a huge computational space which was never possible with your transistor. Transistor will always be 0 or 1. There is nothing like both on and off at the same time. That would be nice. We can try with your lights. Okay, good. So that's my quantum bit or qubit, the equivalent of the bit that we talked about, and this can do all the wonders. So what wonders can it do? For that, let us understand how the classical computer is actually limited. It solves a lot of problems for you, but you don't know what it can't solve. So let me tell you what it can't do. Here was the example of a bit where we had one transistor, and essentially making use of two states of one transistor, I can input any of the numbers 0 and 1. Take two of them, it's a byte using 2 bits. You can input any of the 4 numbers 0 to 3, right? But the most important thing is you can input one at a time, not simultaneously. Remember, I talked about simultaneity, right? So you just extrapolate this idea. You have n bits. You can input one of the 2 raised to the power n numbers one at a time. One at a time. That's important. But now, when you think of the qubit, 1 qubit is allowing you to input 2 numbers at the same time. 2 qubits, 4 numbers at the same time. And just with 300 qubits, you can input 10 raised to the power 90 numbers simultaneously. And 10 raised to the power 90 is the total number of particles in this universe. So that's the kind of computing power we are talking about. And that's why there is so much uproar across the world, why people want these computers to be on their desk, which will never happen. But that's why there is so much interest. Okay, now I will just quickly give you 3 interesting examples, the last being the closest, to my heart, and I will explain why. So, what can't, or what your classical computer cannot do? You ask it to multiply something, it will do it for you in a matter of seconds. But you ask to find the prime factor of a composite number, give it a small number like 15, I'm sure you will do it within a minute. Your computer will also do it under a second. Everything is good. Make the number slightly larger. Let's say a 3-digit number. Again, your computer is smart. Now you may not be as smart, but I may not be as smart. I don't know about you. So it will take the computer still less than a second. Make the number moderately larger. You know, the number of digits is now 232. And this is a fact I'm stating. I'm not cooking it up. That it took 2 years with 100 machines working in parallel to actually find the prime factors of this number. In fact, that is how your data is secure. This is a way to keep your data encrypted and secure, because you cannot find the prime numbers easily. Had the number been 1000 digit, your classical computer will just take the age of the universe. In other words, it can't do it. But because the quantum computer can simultaneously look for the factors, it will take again seconds to find the prime factors. So all your security, all your encrypted data is out of the window. Nothing is secure anymore. Be careful. Okay. Now that's one. And the second thing, second nice example is this so-called quantum search. Idea is something called finding an entry in an unstructured database, very heavy words. Simple story, I give you a phone directory and tell you, okay, so and so is the name, please tell me what is the phone number. That's easy. Names are all arranged in alphabetical order. You go down the list and you tell me the number. But what I do is the opposite. I give you a number and I tell you, tell me who does it belong to. What you will do is exactly what your classical computer does. It takes the number and walks through every number, right? It will just keep moving until it actually finds a match. And then it says, okay, now I found the match, right? In that case, it takes a long time because, you know, one by one, you're doing a serial process. Whereas the quantum computer will look for the numbers parallelly because of the simultaneity that I talked about, and it will again do it in a moment of seconds, right? So that's another nice example where your quantum computer can easily surpass the capabilities of a classical computer. And finally, the example which I wanted to give, and I like the most because this is really something very important for mankind, because this is related to discovery of new chemicals, new medicine, and so on and so forth. It's essentially a combinatorics problem. I'm sure many of you will be able to easily solve what I'm going to say. And let's take a simple example where I have 2 eggs to be placed in, 6 slots of a box. And how many ways can I do it? Okay. No, I think I heard wrong numbers, but anyway, just the first one can be in any of the 6 ones, right? The second one can go into the remaining 5, but then they're identical, so you can exchange them. So the total number of ways is 15, right? Now, the question is, it's not about solving this problem. The question is, how quickly does this problem become really, really complex? And try and appreciate that. Had this been, 4 eggs in a pack with 12 slots, there are 495 ways. Now scale it up a little bit more. If you had 20 eggs to be put in 30 slots, it easily crosses 30 million. So these are the type of problems where classical computer just fails very soon. And that is where you need a computer which can parallelly do a lot of calculations, which is where quantum computer comes in. Why is this problem so important? In drug discovery or in development of new chemicals, the main idea is you try to find new compositions, new molecules, which is essentially taking a bunch of electrons and trying to put them in certain orbits. So if you think of the electrons of the eggs and the orbits as the little slots, then essentially the question you're answering is how many ways can I place a certain number of electrons in a certain number of orbits. That's all. But if you solve those, you can do these wonderful things like discovering penicillin, right? So that's why I said quantum computer can actually change the course of many important things that matter to us, which matters to our security, our healthcare, our economics, and all of this, right? And that's why across the world, there's a huge race to develop the quantum computers. There are several platforms. This is just to impress upon you the kind of effort that is going on across the world. And thankfully and fortunately, our nation has joined this race. And very recently, the National Quantum Mission has been declared. I'm happy to say that IIT Bombay has a very broad participation in the National Quantum Mission. There are several of my colleagues across many departments working in this area. We have a center of excellence dedicated for this purpose. And if you're interested in learning what we do, and if you're interested in joining this exciting journey, you are of course most welcome. Visit the website, which is the Center of Excellence in Quantum Information Computing Science and Technology. You will find all the details. Drop me an email or come to the physics department. Find me on the second floor. Okay? So thank you for your attention. Hope you enjoyed it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, welcome to IIT Bombay. And how many of you are thinking, we came to an engineering institute, where is economics coming from? Or have, okay, a few hands? Yes? Okay, a few. And how many of you have done some economics, maybe as an elective in your high school, heard of economics at least? Okay, heard of economics, fine. So, I'm Professor Aditi Chaubal. I work here in the Department of Economics, and I will be seeing some of you in one of our courses, the 101 economics course that you will all be mandated to do. So at the outset, what we're going to do is, we're going to start with something which is very drab and dreary in terms of what is economics. Because all of you mentioned that you have heard of economics. Can any one of you tell me what you believe is economics? Someone used the word believe earlier. Yes. Okay, only demand and supply of money with respect to demand and supply chains of what? Of anything. Okay, of anything and everything. Only money? Why do we need to have this study at all? Money is flowing from one end to the other. Why do I need to study it? Yes. Why do I need effective utilization? The last part. We do not have infinite what? Resources. Okay, you've probably studied it at high school. So, Paul Samuelson, who was a Nobel laureate, gave this definition with respect to scarce resources. Now, across time, you will find different definitions given by all the top economists. I like to refer to this one, which essentially talks about economics being just the study of resources. But why? Because because none of the resources are infinite in nature. So where does research in that come in? ठीक है, coal is not infinite in nature. I will start using solar energy. Fine. Money is not infinite in nature. I will spend based on what I earn. Fine. Why do I need to study it, or why do I need to do research in it at all? Okay, so now let's start with a few fun examples. How many of you have heard the following statement from either your parents or grandparents or anyone from your seniors saying, हमारे ज़माने में तो ये चीजें बहुत सस्ती थी. These things were very cheap. See, practically every single one of us, right? So, let me start with most of our favorite biscuit, Parle G. What do you see as a difference between these two things? Sorry? One at a time, one at a time. One at a time, people, one at a time. Number of biscuits. Acha, what is the difference in the number of biscuits in the top one and bottom one? Top mein kitne biscuit hai? Well, you all said number of biscuits, so I'm going to ask you number of biscuits. 12. Someone said 12. And then what about 2025? How many biscuits do you think that packet has? 10. 8. Okay, what if I tell you that Parle G till 2021, till COVID, charged 4 rupees for that packet which you see as per the 1990s. Now can you tell me what must have changed from that 10 biscuits or 12 biscuits to 10 biscuits? Quantity to changed, yes. 12 became 10. Anything else? Because, sorry? Quality and size. Size in what way? Size of the biscuit. Actually, someone has done their homework. Yes, it started with changing the border of it. It used to be a thicker border which shrank, and then the biscuit shrank, and then the number went from 12 to 10 and so on. Now, where is the economics in this? So fine, you got part of it right. I said 4 rupees. Now, how much does this packet of 10 biscuits cost? 5. It is only 1 rupee increase. Are you getting the same amount of biscuits? No. Are you getting even the, by the way, now next thing that you should probably go and do is, go and check how many grams. I will give you the answer. Can you tell me how many grams those 12 biscuits used to be versus those 10 biscuits are? 15 grams and 10 grams. Very confident answer. Okay, let's see. I don't have the exact grammage. You can go and check behind any Parle-G packet. But what you are seeing is a concept in economics which we term as shrinkflation. This you will also hear from your elders with respect to your 5 rupee Maggi packet. Same concept, okay? Now, why am I using this here? Where is the research in this? These are facts. What has changed? These are facts, no? This has happened. Why should I care? Why should you care if this happens? Sorry, one at a time, please. I can't hear everyone. Should you care? Okay, let's start with a simpler question. Should you care? Yes. Okay, everyone said yes. Why? Why? Because, is it because my favorite biscuit is suddenly not giving me the same number of biscuits? Value for money. What has happened to value of money? 4 rupees is still 4 rupees. 5 rupees is still 5 rupees. Sorry? Purchasing power. Heavy words. Purchasing power. What is purchasing power? Okay, now we will go into 101 class, which you will anyways come to me. So let's keep it for that. But yes, you are right. What that 4 rupees could buy in the 90s is not what it can buy today. In simplest of terms, you have shrinkflation. Now, where does research come in this? Keep that question with you. The next example I'm going to give you is not that of shrinkflation, but a slight different context. Again, one of your favorite chocolates, right? Dairy milk. What changed from 1993 to 2003 to 2025? Well, apart from the design, we are not doing advertising. So, apart from designing this package, what changed? Quantity changed. In what way? Price definitely changed. Yes. No. That, well, okay. In a slightly different manner. Yes. Sorry? The blocks, yes, or the pieces, if you may. And as a result, the size, quality definitely changed. And the only reason it got upgraded was because of some unforeseen, unfortunate events in between. But yes. Anything else? Sorry? Well, now it comes in additional wrapping for your information. When, well, all of us were kids, it used to be just one single foil. So, yes. Sorry? Thickness, very good, which is where quantity comes in. So, yes, number of squares has reduced. Thickness has reduced is a more valid observation because that is where your quantity reduced. So, what you now have is 20 grams which you could buy for 10 rupees versus 18 grams which is costing you exactly double that amount today. By the way, these rates are from your different apps of whichever grocery app you choose to use, along with the MRP. Okay, these are not wholesale rates. These are rates which, if you walk into any store, you will have to pay. Okay, so what is this? Inflation, right? What is inflation? I've given you two different examples, but what is inflation? You'll say, ma'am, change in prices, increase in prices, fine. Sorry? Inflation is only in the prices. Why has inflation taken place? Yes. But the company will anyway account for that, no? Yes. Okay, now, yes, currency depreciates. No, we're not in international trade yet. Yes. Sorry? Increase in flow of money. Demand of product. But demand of product, wouldn't the company also account for with respect to population increasing? We are the most populous country, isn't it? Not officially, but yes, unofficially we have surpassed China. So, yes, at population growth rates, we have surpassed China already. So, wouldn't Cadbury account for this? Eco-friendly, we'll come to environmental also in a minute. Okay, so all of these aspects, or rather the change in prices which you see, what makes up each of these commodities that you've seen, chocolate, biscuit, Maggi, whatever it may be, those prices have also increased. And why have those prices increased? Now go back to what I started with in terms of scarce resources. If something is, any commodity is not available or is in limited availability, would you pay more for it? Yes, we're willing to pay a much higher price for gold, isn't it? Limited availability in the world. Yes, you have something to say. No, not yet. No, there's different reasons for it. Okay, you could have that, but in a different context. Okay, right. So, therefore, all the components which make up these products are not unlimited in supply. I can go and figure out what caused the doubling of that price. Now, 10 rupees and 20 rupees, someone said purchasing power parity, or purchasing power is what you mentioned, right? Yes. So, what 20 rupees can buy now is much less than what your 20 rupees could buy in the 90s. Clear? That's purchasing power, which you mentioned. How do I analyze how that purchasing power must have changed? No, you can't. It's obsolete. Again, like I said, international trade, we're not talking about trade yet. Yes. Thank you. Okay, by the way, let's get to the answers quickly now. You have different factors which would be driving the price of the wheat which is going into producing your Parle-G, the sugar which is going into producing your dairy milk, and so on. Those prices also change over time. What would drive those prices? The price of producing wheat. Suppose you start using, the farmer starts using a high yielding variety, HYV, everyone is aware of, right? You use a high yielding variety of the seed, it's going to be more expensive than your traditional varieties. Now, Parle-G and dairy milk are going to say, okay, the farmer is going to charge me more because his seed is more expensive. So now I need to, where am I going to get that money from? From you and me. Okay? By the way, these are basic concepts of economics, but the research comes into the picture because these factors vary depending on whether I'm studying chocolates and biscuits, or whether I'm studying the economy as a whole, or anything else, whether I'm a big conglomerate which is selling any item, including your tables and chairs, including all the water bottles, including all the brands of mobile phones that you have. Yes? That is where the research comes in. How does this demand and supply work? Someone mentioned demand and supply. Okay? So now, if that is clear, economics really is just decision making with respect to these scarce resources, research and economics in particular, and the optimal decisions with respect to, someone mentioned, utilization, optimal utilization of it. Yes? So therefore, there are various decisions, trade-offs. What do you think is a trade-off or a decision which you as students who have probably come into the hostel life for the first time, what do you think is one of the decisions, economic decisions, which you will have to take in the near future of a month? Any example? How fast your pocket money is going to vanish? That's an economic decision. Okay? Right. So therefore, all of this comes under the purview of the field of economics. And research helps design not just your decisions pertaining to which phone you want to buy, but goes deeper. Deeper in what way? Deeper in formulating policies. Remember the fact where I brought up the price of wheat and high yielding varieties of seeds? That is something which is also important for the economy. The Indian economy also sets prices at the national level to protect its farmers. Against what? Any idea? Now bring in trade. It's okay. No, I'm making sure that your point is noted. Now bring in trade because our farmers need to be protected to a certain extent. So therefore, and across the country, there is something called, some of you may be aware of, the minimum support price. Yes, very good. I'm happy to note that many of you have said yes. So that is for wheat, for rice, etc. How is that MSP decided? That MSP is decided based on economic research, which states what that minimum price should be, where demand and supply come into the picture. Is that clear? Okay, so if that is clear, essentially, you are making economic decisions all across your entire life around, and you can see these economic decisions around you. Yes? So therefore, if I were to talk about what a typical economic researcher would do, you would formulate a question. Now, when I say formulate a question, formulate an economic question with an economic basis. Not an ad hoc question which says, does X cause Y just because I think so? Or for example, all of us are wearing the same color t-shirt, does it mean we're all volunteers? Yes? So therefore, you have to have an economic basis. And all of this comes from the same stream in terms of your scientific method of inquiry, which all of you are familiar with from your science backgrounds. Formulate the question and the hypothesis, and always remember the one question which the field of economics tries to always answer is what you have on the screen there. Why is it relevant? The question itself, why is it relevant for the economy, for a firm, or for an individual? And who and what will it impact? Okay? As long as you're able to answer these questions using your analysis, that is where economics research will take you. I'm not going to talk about the ample amount of data that you will end up analyzing for this research, or the different types of theoretical models that you can build to answer these questions, right? But these are some of the different examples which some of my colleagues work on, I work on, and so on, where you have areas as diverse as, can I eradicate poverty? Two, things like how should India grow? Yes? There was an example which was given by an earlier speaker regarding the cancer cell, the CAR T cell therapies, right? There's one example which I want to give you towards the end of it, and I'll come back to it. The last sentence is something which many of you at some point in time will approach any of us and say, can I predict stock prices? Okay, I know this is of interest to multiple people in the room. Well, if that question was answered, we wouldn't have stock markets. So there is a science behind it, the economic science, and it is not as easy as you would think. Otherwise, that question would have already been answered. Okay? And like I said, there's applications all around us. So, before I give you that one very valid example wherein IIT has also contributed, how many of you, well, all of you, I shouldn't ask you this question, but do you vaguely remember the formula for the gravity equation? How many of you remember the gravity equation? Well, it's very recent, so you might as well remember it, right? Yes? Yeah? Force is directly proportional to product of the masses of the two bodies and inversely proportional to square of, very good. Yes, yes. All of you know it. Now, what if I told you that can also be applied in economics? And someone mentioned trade and someone mentioned gold standard. Yes? Okay. The reason why it can be applied, it has been applied to explain how two countries trade with each other. You may have read recent newspaper articles which talk about the tariffs being imposed on India and other countries as well. Yes? Trade takes place between India and all its neighbors as well as other countries. The simplest model to explain how much or what quantity of goods and services are exchanged between two countries is directly proportional to the output that each of these countries produce in terms of the goods and services and inversely proportional to the distance between them. That's the most basic model of trade as well, the gravity model of trade. Okay? So therefore, yes, you will find applications of your scientific concepts also in economics. And that's where I'm going to end with respect to where is it relevant. These are just the steps. If any of you are interested, please feel free to approach any of the economics faculty. There are various electives which are offered by the economics department. And you can, if you're interested, you can join multiple interdisciplinary clubs such as the Consultant Analytics Club, the Finance Club, and explore different platforms if you're interested in reading about some of these concepts in an academic scenario. Right? Thank you.
Hi guys and girls, friends, colleagues. Tired? Me too. All right, so that's my name. That's my lab's name. Oh, I can see it here also. That's my lab's name, and I'm from Environmental Science and Engineering Department. Any undergrads today from Environmental Science and Engineering discipline? Raise your hands. All right, good. Rest of you, you are doomed because we are the ones who are going to survive. You know environment. You don't know about environment. Made a bad choice not coming to environment. Okay. All right. So jokes apart. So I will try to swipe through the presentation, and possibly this is not working. Okay, maybe you.
All right, okay. So I have to say next slide every time. Okay. Yeah. Convenient. Okay. Next slide, please. So, yeah. Welcome to IIT Bombay or IITB. So, why? Okay. Yeah. So, welcome to IITB. Why there's an underline at IITB? Emphasizing, saying you are here. I thought of making a very flowery slide and, with all those music and trumpet and papa, you are here at IIT Bombay. Then I thought, well, the name itself, it defines you are here. And just saying welcome to IIT Bombay is enough because you just made it. So a great round of applause for all of you. Come on, let's do that. Yeah. हो गया, ज़्यादा हो गया. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So this is the department that we are talking about. It will be your go-to place, whether you are from environment or whether for energy or any other department, because it has got a very cool eatery at the bottom. If you have seen the CCD building, known as very commonly a Cafe Coffee Day. We basically offer undergrads, we offer MSc, PhDs, and MTech PhDs, etc. And these are the faculties that we have in the department. We are 18 strong. We started in 2019 as a department. Before that, we were a center. We were only talking about the PG education, the PhD, and the masters, etc., etc. So we are a new department when we talk about UGs, and just like you guys, we are still learning. In fact, few of your seniors are senior to me also because I joined 2 years back in the institute. So that's how I can put it. So a few statistics about our department. How many students have passed out in the few years? What is the current number of students in BTech? We did have a dual degree program, etc. We have PhD 113 enrolled. Few of them are peeking out from there. That's my lab group. They are forced to come here today to listen to my presentation. So jokes apart, these are the few broad areas that we work on. We have 4 verticals: environmental science and engineering. We have air pollution control technologies, we have environmental systems modeling, solid waste, and hazardous waste management, water and wastewater engineering. How many of you are heard about environmental engineering, and how many of you know the difference between environmental science and environmental engineering? Can anyone just tell me the difference? We are both. We are environmental science and engineering. What is the difference? Can anyone bother to tell me the difference? So in environmental engineering, we're trying to change the environment. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's very interrelated. Okay, how many of you are Big Bang Theory fans over here? Raise your hands. 1, 2. Okay, wow, cool. You have not even entered college. Nice. Okay, so we use environmental science knowledge, and we use physics, chemistry, biology, nothing that you have not learned, and mathematics. We use this science to create engineering solutions for the environment. We can put it that way. The science part helps us to understand what we want to do and what is the problem, and the engineering techniques are something that you can say translate, transform, all kind of things, and then we come up with a solution which is a close approximation of what can be done. So that's how we can put it. So that was the customary part of the presentation that was supposed to give about my department. Now the fun part. So that's our lab in environmental science and engineering department. As you can see, it's an acronym, ENREST lab. That's a logo designed by giving inputs from all of us, my lab members and me. It stands for Environmental Recovery, Surveillance and Treatment Lab, ENREST. And if somehow by looking at the name ENREST, you feel we don't take rest, no, we do take rest. So that's what we wanted to say. So ENREST doesn't mean we are not taking rest. We also take rest. We have fun. We sometimes go out, etc., etc. You can go to the next slide. And this is the current lab composition. If you see at the somewhere over there, that's me, and others are over there. They're peeking out from there. We have Vikrant, Anvesha, Shumana, Dhananjay, and Vipo, who is a current master student, and Maitri also. He's a PhD student. I'm not going to talk in details about what everybody is working on. They're working on something very important, each problem which is very important.
These are our alumni, 2 dual degree students, 2 interns who have successfully completed. For example, Sneha, she is in US pursuing her PhD right now. Antodipa is one of the NITs. Rahul has gone, I think, to a PSU last year. He got his job, he got placed, etc. So that's overall our alumni. We do collaborate with a lot of people outside and inside India. That's a list and map of our collaboration. Thank you, Anvesha, for making that figure. So this is, and believe me, this is just a very small chunk of what we do. If you look at each and every faculty member's profile in environmental science and engineering, you would find we are collaborating like anything with outside world to bring in the latest environmental solutions on ground. So now that we have talked so much about introductions, what we do actually. So before that, I just wanted to ask you a question. How many of you had microbiology for your, or sorry, not microbiology, biology for your, what do you call that? +2, right? 1, okay. So environmental science and engineering students, you're going to learn microbiology again. If you have skipped biology, then you are not going to have a hard time, but yeah, you're going to have fun and a lot of enjoyment. So what we do before we think of it, let's think of how an environment gets affected. So what matters do matter the most, or what are the things that actually change the environment? If you look at it from a bird's eye perspective, before we just jump into, can anyone tell me what do you think is causing environmental pollution? Global warming, population, okay. What else? Let's quantify in terms of matter. If you say global warming, the amount of carbon that was there 4.5 billion years back, okay, let's just take out all those asteroids which came in, few small mass balance, imbalance, etc. The total amount of carbon remains the same, isn't it? What is the problem? Louder, please. State change, what do you mean by that? It's more in air. And how is it causing a pollution, and how is it causing some effect? Can you please be a bit louder, sir? Okay. Okay. Any other take on this global warming? One of the indirect effects of global warming, anyone knows? Obviously, oceans are getting warmer, ice caps are melting, yes. What else? How do you get your oxygen? Plants, trees, excellent. Which is what is known as the lungs of the world? Amazon, okay. But does Amazon give you the most of the oxygen in the world? Which does? Correct. The oceans are getting acidified. The phytoplankton in the oceans, more CO2 means there is more equilibrating inside the oceans, and it's creating more acidic environment. The phytoplanktons which were previously producing oxygen, they are not capable of doing their photosynthesis, and there is more CO2 into the air, and the cycle continues. That's one of the indirect effects. So there is a case where a microbe, very teeny weeny microbe, by the way, what's the size of a microbe? Let's say bacteria. Any idea? Micrometers, okay. How much is that, micrometers? 10 to the power -6, okay. Engineers shouting around, all right. So if that is the case, so can I actually point a microbe somewhere over here, 10 to the power -6? I can write this with my intuition, I can imagine, but can I just point it out? Even with a small speck of the chalk? No, right? Okay. So imagine, people at the back won't be able to even see this. Imagine this small round circle. If I tell you this is a city of microbes, do you agree with me? Is it not? So now, what about this? Maybe a country or a world, you don't know. World, right? All right. So understand the scale. So that's the size of a microbe, and even at that scale, it has got such huge implications. All because we are just at the snap of our finger trying to say that we are the best species on the planet, isn't it? So microbes obviously matter the most, but what else matters? Have you heard this term microplastics? Okay, good, thank God. Okay, so there are nanoplastics also. There has been reports in Europe and etc. So these are only two of the problems that we are facing. What is that structure on the screen? अरे बहुत अच्छा बढ़िया, very good, very good. Why there is a benzene ring depicting a material? Hmm? Okay, okay, yeah, he's good, he is right, but that was not the reason why he put it. So see, compounds have been there in nature since 4.5 billion years ahead, previously also. There has been microbes. Microbes predate anything else on this planet. They had been doing their job of recycling matter, recycling dead organic matter. You have read this in your schools, I don't know, microbiology, history or biology, whatever science you had studied. But the problem is that what we have done in the last 200 years, we have created chemicals with such strong bonds, which are not only carcinogenic in nature, they are persistent in environment. They don't go away just like that. It's like giving you a tough numerical which you don't know how to solve, and you're sitting in your JE chair, you're thinking, okay, time is running out, what do you need to move on to the next question? The microbe does the same thing. You give it a food which it did not digest, it look at it, try to break it down, doesn't move over to the next food. And there is so much of accumulation of these materials, man-made materials or man-made chemicals in the environment, that we don't know how to get rid of that. And this entire evolution of man-made materials has happened over the last 50 years. Have you read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring? Anyone? Anyone heard about it? Silent Spring is about, yeah, it somewhat talks about DDT. So Rachel Carson was one of the microbiologists. She was an enthusiast in US. Rachel Carson in 1950s wrote a book, Silent Spring. It talks about a small town in US, a fictional town, where she says the spring has come, but there is no birds, there is no song of birds that you can listen to. The children are falling sick. The pregnant women, they're not giving childbirth, or they're giving stillbirth, some kind of very dreary situation. And then she went on to say that it's all because of an industry which started discharging its untreated chemical toxic compounds into the wastewater, into the groundwater. In that book, Rachel Carson in 1950 is telling us that every year the US is producing 10,000 new chemicals every year. We are inventing new chemicals every year to the tune of 10,000 in 1950s. Understand what is the scale today. So the other aspect of microbe, other than microbes, is materials that we need to take care. So how do we do that, or how is it connected to the environment? So if you can just go to the next slide. All right, so not all microbes are bad. Again, you must have heard ki haath dholo, etc. We had a SARS-CoV chapter. We know microbes can do a hell lot of havoc also. It's not that always they are good. There are a lot of combinations over here. So just quickly have a look at those. I will just read out a few. Wrong microbes at the right place can delay your design bioprocess. You have a right kind of reactor, but the microbes inside are wrong. Your entire bioprocess goes wrong, your treatment system fails, etc., etc. Wrong microbe at the wrong place, a pathogenic or a disease-causing microbe in your gut, not good, man. Class miss ho jayega, pet kharab, everything gone. So you had to have clean water for that. So there are a lot of combinations that we can have, and these are the like if you have a wrong microbe at the right place or wrong microbe at the wrong place with these combinations, what is the conclusion? That is something that I have understood. So basically, if you look at it, these opinions are basically strictly for the presenter, and while the presenter thinks the conclusions are right, you might differ. So if you differ, you can come back to me after this presentation, email me. Well, right now, if you come back, then I will just move on, because I also don't have any clue of whether these conclusions are right or not. But this is how we put it. It's just a polite way of saying, please don't ask questions from this slide. Okay, we can move on. Let us look at few examples from environmental field. I have color coded it blue, green, and red because bioremediation, when we are talking about, we can use microbes for remediating. Microbes can eat up a lot of materials. When we think about biorecovery, how many of you have ever visited a biogas plant or you ever know what's a biogas plant? Do you know what's a biogas plant, by the way? You know? Okay. Can you just explain to your friends very loudly what it is? Yeah, you're right. So biogas is something which is basically a combination of carbon dioxide and methane. It has got high calorific value. And if you look at the government of India's lot of schemes, now that we are talking about more sustainable technologies, we are talking about circular bioeconomy, we want to valorize our organic waste to produce biogas or any kind of other bioenergy, which is cleaner in nature compared to the other sources like petroleum or hydrocarbon. So when as environmental engineer, we are trying to treat waste, we try to do it with an anaerobic digestion whenever it is possible so that we can have more biogas generation that can be used for energy. So it's typically connecting the energy, environment, nexus, etc. And I already mentioned about microplastics, so I'm not going to go into the details. So finally, now that you have got a sense that microbes can be used for bioremediation, it can also be used for doing something good for you like biogas generation or bioremediation, or even as simple as just cleansing your gut with good microbes. So this is what we call the relationship chart that we use in our lab. So basically, you can have 4 combinations possible: good materials, good microbes; good materials, bad microbes; bad materials, bad microbes; bad materials, good microbes. And basically, that's what we do. We look at the situation and then we say that, okay, we have a bad microbe, so we need to disinfect that microbe or kill that microbe so it does not cause any disease. Or if we have a good microbe, how we can use that for treating the wastewater or treating an organic waste or treating a contamination, something like that. Or we have a good microbe, we have a good opportunity, we have organic waste. Can we generate some biogas, some kind of essential chemicals which has industrial value, etc., etc. So we usually do that. So those are the, based on that, our entire research in the NREST lab is based on the material microbe interaction. So we look at the different interactions. So if you look at it, that's the central theme, the material microbes interaction. And then we look at material development. We try to develop materials which are biocompatible in nature. We try to do resource recovery with them. We try to also look at the interactions of the, can we go to the next one? Yeah. We also look at the monitoring part. So when we talk about microplastics, these microplastics can basically adhere to microbial biomass. And if it is pathogenic in nature, microplastics are there inside our body right now. If you are scared by listening, how many of you know that we do have microplastics in our blood? Are you aware of that? Okay. And what are we going to do about it? Or can we do anything about it right now? So you do understand we need a lot of sharp minds to look at these problems and understand, because it's ubiquitous in nature. We have found microplastics in Antarctica, I think 5-6 years back. Right now, we have got microplastics in our own bloodstream, and it is not a prediction. We are already there. We cannot escape by saying that we are going to have endocrine disrupting hormones or carcinogenic substances in our food. It is already there. So every year we have a lot of summits and conventions where we go and say we need to do something about it, but it's already there. And maybe you all are at the right time, at the right place to start looking at these problems and identifying those problems and trying to, deliver some kind of results. So overall, I'm not going to bore you with the details of what we do. It's basically we basically look at nanomaterials. We try to integrate microbes with that. We'd like to look at the gene expression of the microbes. We want to see that whether the microbe can be helpful for bioremediation. We also look at how the gene expression of microbe can be mapped. Few of our students are trying to work on that. And then we want to translate these results to get a bigger picture that how we can monitor the environment with that, etc. So that's the end of the slide. Possibly I have few more slides. It's going to be uploaded, but because of the paucity of time, we're not going to look at it. These are the few student projects that we are looking at. It's basically this is for disinfection of water. So again, we are trying to kill a bad microbe with a good material. So go to the next slide. This is basically, we are trying to use the microbe again for valorization. We are trying to use algae for creating more valuables, recovery from that, biolipids, etc., and effect of certain good materials like biochar, carbonaceous materials on plant growth. And at last, that's me and the lab members. So over last years, we had 2 consortia, 2 workshops and different other activities. That at the corner is Meenakshi. She's a visitor from Australia. She just visited our lab. All right, some philosophy time. Okay, hold on to that. Don't press anything. Okay, last question for you guys. Last question of the day. Be very attentive. Answer me what you see on the board or on the slide or whatever, the projector. Okay, one at a time. Okay, maybe this section can answer first. What do you see over here? Half filled glass. Excellent. What do you see over here? Very good. Anyone else? Huh? Half empty glass. Okay, just because they told half filled, you told half empty. Excellent. Okay, JE वाला attempt. ठीक है कि A, B, C, D चारों में से कोई तो होगा. Randomly करते जाओ. Good. Very good. You're all absolutely correct. You're excellent engineers. You have got your philosophies right because I have put philosophy time. So you thought ki half filled glass hi bolna hai, right? How many of you, did any of you think it's just a glass of water? Kisi ne socha? You thought, okay. How many of you? 1, 2, 3. How many of you? Okay, now honestly raise your hands. कितने लोगों ने सोचा कि ये just एक glass of water है? That's it, man. It's a glass of water. That's the primal observation you should have. That is what is required when you talk about all these enthuse, everything that we are doing over here. You have to look at the facts the way they are before jumping into conclusions with a preconceived bias कि किसी ने बोला था कि half glass filled water बोलने से positivity reflect होता है ना? कुछ नहीं होता. This is a glass of water. Next comes whether it's half filled, full filled, what kind of water, sparkling water, अंबानी जो पानी पीता है वो है क्या, अपना local वाला नल वाला पानी है क्या? All things come later. It's just a glass of water. Okay. So with that, go to your hostels, or I don't know. Do you have any presentations after this? No. Okay. So go to your hostels, think about it, try to accept and absorb things as they are first without any bias so that, okay, without any bias, and just enjoy the rest of the part. So that's it. Thank you.